Welcome back to Story Time. It's the Story Time podcast.
Oh yeah.
We're gonna gather around and tell some stories. And this time they're spooky, Halloween flavored.
Ooh.
Well, Halloween, like, more serious than usual, I guess. Compared to the one other episode we did of this.
Slightly more spooky than usual.
So, I figured I'd go first.
Nice.
Break the ice and get us ready and stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell you guys what I was doing, so this is a surprise for both of you.
Yeah.
I am telling us the story of Goethe's Faust.
Ooh.
Which I think I'm saying that right. I'm definitely saying Faust right. I'm uncertain if his name is Goethe or Goth. Or
That's
Goth.
How's it
Everyone
spelled?
knows Faust, so like, they'll know.
How is it spelled?
It's Goeth.
I think it's Goth.
Goth. Goeth's Faust. Alright, so here we go. Ahem. Our story begins with Mephistopheles, the demon, talking to God. And he makes a bet with God. Yeah, it starts real quick.
I just didn't know the demons could just chit-chat with God, I guess.
Why not? They,
Mephistopheles makes a bet with God that he can basically corrupt God's favorite person. I only saw one translation saying it as favorite person, or it might have just been regular guy for all I know. Because I don't think Faust would really be that big of a favorite in God's eyes.
Yeah.
He's like, I can totally, like, convince one of your favorite people to join my side. And God's like, alright, this will be a good, like, learning tool for him. The people will learn from this.
Always
So-
the optimist.
God's a big fan of education.
So then we cut to Faust, who is a scholar, but he has turned to magic after science kept failing him. He kept trying to learn
same.
more. And science just wasn't teaching him anything new. And Faust is real bummed because he's not learning anything new, so for a moment he briefly considers suicide, but then he decides, it's Easter, so you know what, I'm just gonna go celebrate Easter.
Good on him. Good. Good way to pick himself back up.
Yeah. Just go eat some chocolate eggs.
Yup. Listen to some music. So he goes out, he has a grand old time, and then when he comes back, a poodle has followed him home. But surprise!
I thought you were going to say that he comes back as a poodle. And
As
I was
a-
like,
yes.
I didn't know that's how the story went.
I didn't remember
Everyone
this
leaves
part.
that
yeah.
part out, I think.
Surprise! The poodle is actually Mephistopheles. Blah, blah, blah.
This is incredibly important. Because, I mean, we've all seen artwork of Mephistopheles, but
Yeah.
now we get to draw Mephistopheles with furry poodle shit.
Yes. It makes
This
him...
is
He
so important.
specifically picked poodle. He had a choice. He
He
could have been
like
any
a
dog.
wolf.
He
Yeah.
could have been like a cool, anything cool, and he was like, I love
bitch.
poodles.
It just makes him look exclusively like him from the Powerpuff Girls in my head. So anyway, surprise, it's Mephistopheles. And, okay, so Mephistopheles is like, I'm gonna make a deal with you. I will help you out with whatever you want. However, if there is ever a point in time where Faust thinks the words, like, basically the idea of, I wish things could stay like this forever, because of how happy he was, Faust would die, and then serve Mephistopheles in hell. So that's
Don't
the
take
deal.
that. Don't take that. Don't
And
take
Faust
that.
is like,
Yeah, no, that's
hell
sucks.
yes.
No.
It's like, how, the moment someone's like, don't think this, it's like, it's
well, I'm
automatic.
gonna. Yeah.
You would have
So,
to think the words to think to not think the words.
Exactly. Well, it's not that much of a monkey's paw trickery situation.
Okay.
It is just, it's, everyone has had the idea of, oh golly, I wish this afternoon could last forever, or something like that. That's just part of human, you can't constantly be striving for more. Eventually Faust will either die or be content, and once he does, then it's game over. So you're a fool, Faust. You're stupid. Science didn't teach you that.
Science or magic.
Oh, okay. So the next thing, Mephistopheles immediately tries to, like, trick Faust into feeling exactly what you guys are saying by, like, getting him to go into places he thinks he's going to enjoy, and then Faust is just a curmudgeon and doesn't like any of the things Mephistopheles invites him to. Specifically, it pointed out Mephistopheles was like, let's go to a bar, and then they go to the bar, and then Faust is just grossed out by all the drunk people.
Arms crossed, sitting at the bar slouch, being like, this sucks.
I wanted to stay home.
Faust very suddenly, now in my head, looks like all of the angry old men red herrings in every Scooby-Doo movie.
So some shenanigans happen. Sometime later, Faust sees a beautiful young woman named Gretchen and instantly falls in love with her. And this is the first time he, like, really uses Mephistopheles as, like, help me with everything I want to do, because he's like, yo, make her fall in love with me. But Mephistopheles struggles with this because Gretchen is super religious. So he's like, I got it. I will lure her away from the church with awesome jewelry. But then she just donates the jewelry to the church.
Hey, do you want to stop believing in Jesus? Here's a necklace.
And after that...
Yes, the hope was like, ooh, vanity, that's a sin, but...
Yeah.
And after that
it's
fails...
just a bracelet, bro, it's not that deep.
It's like, it's not even my color. So after that fails, Mephistopheles' next biggest plan is to just give her more jewelry. And then it worked this time.
Oh, good for Mephistopheles, getting one W.
And Gretchen's like, yeah, I totally love Faust now, even though she knows Mephistopheles is evil. Like, she knows he's there and she knows he's evil. Okay, so sometime later, Gretchen and Faust totally want to fuck, but they're like, oh, we can't, Gretchen's mom is in the house, and we don't want her to find out. So Faust is like, yo, here's a sleeping potion. We can give her the sleeping potion. Oops, it was poison. She's dead now. Anyways, Gretchen's pregnant.
Just go,
potion.
Just go outside. Like, just leave the house.
No. Only Gretchen's bed. Even though Faust has his own place. Gretchen's place. So yeah,
every person in the story is stupid.
So yeah, Gretchen's mom is dead, and now Gretchen's pregnant. Whoops. Oopsie poopsie.
Oh no.
So, apparently things happened between that and the next thing, but the first synopsis I read made it seem like it was immediately after. So the next thing she does is she drowns the baby, and I was like, that was a real fast pregnancy.
Oh.
So because she did that, she is very promptly given the death sentence for infanticide, which, makes sense.
Wait,
yeah.
How did they... Like, did she announce, like, hey, I'm gonna go drown my baby? Like, how did...
I guess she just didn't do it very sneakily.
I guess, like, they didn't specify. Like, Faust just found out that that's what she did.
Oh, and then he was like, I'm gonna go get the cops.
No, Faust is like, I'm gonna bust her out of jail before they can kill her.
Oh. What?
So he rushes there and breaks into the prison.
I didn't think that Faust went like this.
Fully,
gotta be honest.
I expected Mephistopheles to be doing
didn't-
more.
I didn't expect jailbreaks.
Well, Mephistopheles generally help. Like, when Faust is, like, breaking in, Mephistopheles is there with him, like, fighting people off, I think, depending on how the play wants to interpret it.
Just punching him. Just doing fisticuffs.
just a fluffy man doing karate kicks.
I forgot that Mephistopheles is a dog boy.
So he gets there and he's like, yo, Gretchen, I'm busting you out. And Gretchen's like, no, I'm not gonna go with you. And he knows, like, I can't do anything about that. And so then he leaves, and Gretchen is, like, Mephistopheles tells him, like, she's gonna be fine. But by fine, he means, like, go to heaven. And that's the end of part 1.
Mephistopheles was there.
Go to heaven.
Yeah, she goes to heaven. She dies.
She big murdered. She did a
Big
big
murdered.
murder.
Goes to heaven. There'll be a theme at the end. We'll find out.
Okay.
Mephistopheles could have helped.
He could have, but he didn't.
Yeah, like, oh no, like, oh, she doesn't want to leave jail and be safe and not get executed. Well, maybe she also didn't want to marry you in the beginning, but you had no problems with telling Mephistopheles to make that happen.
I think at that point in time, Faust was like, I will respect your wishes this time.
He actually grew to love her.
So from what I could
Maybe.
tell, like, every rendition I heard before this ended at that part. Or, like, some things happen, like, oh, and then he came back and bit him in the ass, kind of thing. But there's a whole second part with 5 acts.
Wow.
Plays used to be really long. People didn't have anything else to do.
And it's a lot of just random shit. Almost none of it is important. So I'm just gonna kind of, like, bullet point go through what Faust does in most of the second part of the story.
I'm excited. I'm ready for it.
He starts by becoming the jester for the Holy Roman Emperor.
That was just such a radical first one. I figured becoming a jester would have been deeper into the list.
No, it's like, I'm done with this place, let's go somewhere else.
Yeah, also, where was Faust? Faust was German, correct?
I think so. I believe so. Okay.
So unexpected.
It's a real sucker punch of a left turn, isn't it?
Alright,
he introduced paper money into the economy.
Oh.
He went to a carnival. This was, like, big enough to have, like, 2 sentences worth, but nothing real important seemed to happen at the carnival.
Okay.
He made a satire of the French Revolution. And this is when it starts to get confusing. So he does this thing where he pulls Helen of Troy and her lover Paris out of Hades to hang out.
Wait, okay, hang on.
Yeah.
How does he just goes to Hades?
Well, so it mentions him going to, like the tomb of women or something like that. Like, it was a big thing. He pulled Helen and Paris out of Hades to fall in love with the Emperor, but no one liked Helen and Paris, so they didn't. But then after that, we get a little short story of Mephistopheles hanging out with a homunculus for a bit. And then we go back to Faust, who has fallen in love with Helen, and him and Helen are totally in love now.
What is this fanfic self-insert?
Right?
Yeah,
I was like, I thought this was a serious story. I really did. I really thought that there was, like, you know...
People talk about Faustian bargains all the time, and this is not, like, they don't mention this part.
No, they don't, right? They don't talk about the part where it's like, and then I'll bring back my favorite historical figure to life, and we can date and hold hands, maybe?
It really feels like
Why did he even bring back Paris?
because some lady wanted to fall in love with Paris, but then all the men kept making fun of Paris. I think okay, so the thing that really, like, it feels like two different authors, like, right? Like, apparently, like season 1 of, what was that anime that came out with the kid with, like, orange hair, and they were all orphans?
Promise Neverland.
Yeah, it's like season 1 of Promise Neverland, and then part 2 of Faust is season 2 of Promise Neverland. Like, it's completely different.
They get, like, new animation staff, and everyone's like, ugh.
This isn't what I like.
What's with the outlines?
Oh, so Ruby parts 1 through 3, and then Ruby for volumes 4 onward.
Oh, no.
After Faust and Helen fall in love, they have a son who is said they mention him flying, but I don't know if he had, like, wings or if he built wings. Anyways, he died, basically because it was alluding to Icarus for some reason. This analogy came from nowhere and went nowhere, so I don't know why.
I've read Icarus. I smart.
And Helen is bummed, so she goes back to Hades.
The tragedy never stops.
So Faust is like, what do I do now? So he travels to the east, and he claims new land. Specifically, he claims land in the middle of the ocean by damming up parts of the ocean. They don't go into details about how he did that. I bet Mephistopheles helped.
Really, really possible. But I guess this is, resurrection. Fine. Dams can work.
The dams are the most believable part of the story so far.
So, alright.
In order to, while he's doing this, Mephistopheles gets him 3 strong men to follow him as, like, his aides. I think they were, like, a pirate or an emperor or something. It wasn't an important aspect of the story. So he does super good, and they're like, so thanks for making new land for us. We promise you this beach. You can rule over this beach. And then he gets pissed because this old couple has a grody ass hut on his beach. So he tells his 3 strong men to go and get rid of them, but they didn't really know what he meant, so they just killed the old people. And it upsets Faust so much he goes blind.
What is this plot?
That makes no
this?
sense.
I was like, oh yeah.
Did they proofread this? Was there any second draft?
When I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna do another story time. I'm gonna tell Faust. It's gonna be awesome. And then I was like sitting there reading it in bed on my phone, and my Rambo was next to me, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm trying to figure this out. I can't figure this out."
This isn't like you know how you can kind of chart out storylines. This is like a spiral. Like,
this is as nonsensical as fucking Dante's Inferno.
Remember, this is also the bullet point version. Like the carnival was such a thing. Like, why are we wasting time at the carnival when we have to get here?
Version.
So anyway,
this
he goes
the director's cut.
So he goes blind out of grief. Okay, and now, that's the end of bullet point version. This is what happens next. This is the ending of the story. Okay. So Faust, maybe because he felt bad for killing those old people and all the other things he's done, he's like, you know what? I promise this little beach that I have is going to be the most amazing land for anyone to live on, and I'm going to do my best to make it as good as possible.
Except for those 2 old people, apparently.
Except for those 2 old people. Can't have no ghost houses on my place.
Even though, No,
they didn't go to Hades. See, that's the thing.
That wouldn't make any sense. So, it is now, with him promising he's going to do a good job at this, that he finally has that feeling of things like this could stay this way forever. And then he dies. surprise! Suddenly, as Mephistopheles is coming to get his body, angels descend from heaven and start throwing burning rose petals at Mephistopheles.
What?
Dude, that's so metal. That's if I ever get married, people aren't gonna throw rice. They're gonna throw burning rose petals at me.
Oh.
Also, what a weird weapon for them to pick. Like, why not feathers?
All we have are these rose petals. Fuck you! So
Okay.
Mephistopheles is foiled, and they take Faust to heaven, where he is greeted by 3 biblical women, the Virgin Mary, and Gretchen. And they're all, like, praying and begging for Faust to... They use the word resurrected, though I am unsure if they mean, like, born again, like the typical way resurrected gets used, or just, like, ascend to an even higher power in heaven. I'm unclear about that part. And they're sitting there and they're praying, and it's all these women, and then Faust specifically refers to a higher power as heaven's queen, or using the word goddess. And rumor has it this might have also been in reference to the Egyptian goddess Isis. And that was the end of the story.
So
Curtains closed.
Oh,
okay,
my.
a couple things.
Yes.
First, does that
Yeah.
mean that God just didn't keep his end of the promise?
God is only mentioned that one time in the very beginning. And then
But,
never
like,
gets
that
talked
was-
about again.
They made that deal, but Mephistopheles didn't get to keep.
No. Faust won because he was always striving to do more. Even when
Do
he was
more.
dead, he
But he
wanted
wasn't
to
doing-
keep doing more.
But he
Wanted
didn't
to-
want to do good. Like, who cares if you want to do more?
So
It's like,
here's-
oh
If a
man,
baby murderer gets to go to heaven, like, if that's the scale we're working on,
I
then
guess you're
then
right.
being a Disney princess, man, is enough, I guess.
So yeah.
Okay,
So
second
alright.
thing.
Yes.
Okay, I thought the story went differently.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered Faust going, like his wife and kid dying, and so Faust travels into hell to save them. Am I wrong?
There are different versions, but this is the original version. You might have just
see.
heard. So here's the thing. So, alright, I was similarly stumped like you two. And so I did some digging, and I found out that Goth is super not into Orthodox Christianity. And basically, the story of Faust is to be a pretty big spit in the face of Christian ideas. Oh, this lady who kills a baby, she goes to heaven. When
I
Faust
see,
dies,
I
it's not
see.
I see.
it's not Jesus, it's not God, it's a goddess. And it's the Virgin Mary, it's women. It's all like meant to like spit on
to rile
the
up
face.
the Crizzos.
Yeah. Faust, like, apparently during the carnival, Faust hung out with witches and Medusa for a bit, and it's a lot just like that.
He
It was a
also
big-
doesn't get punished for being a magician. Like,
Yes.
that is something that is established, and then that's just like, and that's fine.
In fact,
Okay,
he's
'cause-
exclusively rewarded. Like, Mephistopheles just helps him with everything he wants, and using magic is the only way he gets what he wants, and he never gets punished for any of it unless he feels guilt over it. Which is the other thing. The only punishment he gets is his own remorse, but he does show remorse when things die because of his actions. Which I think is also
Fascinating.
meant to say you don't need to be religious to have a moral compass. It's a thicker little batch of oatmeal than I expected.
Yeah, because I thought it was a very
What
like
an expression.
yeah. Also, yeah, because I guess I just assumed that this was like made in that time where everyone was like, only Christianity all the way. All of her stories are about Christianity and how much I love Jesus. So
In fact,
I just went in assuming that, I guess.
the versions, like, that we all might be more common with might be the church or Christian people basically trying to retell it to basically
I
fit
see.
what they want, their ideals. So
That is a norm.
Yeah, they do love doing that.
So that
their
was
favorite
my
thing.
story.
Wow, that was
Yay.
wow. That was what a ride.
What a trip.
I don't know. I feel like I went through all the stages of grief.
I know, like, him becoming a jester suddenly was really big, but I think the angels throwing the rose petals that were on fire was
Yeah.
really the showstopper.
Yeah, I hope to someday be watching a film and the hero dies and the Grim Reaper is like, and now it's soul time to reap, and a legion of angels just descends and just throws burning flowers at him, and he's like, why?
And it's I imagine it like pocket sand, like it's not a cool throwing. It's just like
I'm imagining them like wet rose petals. Like they're not full on fire. They're kind of just like smoking a little and kind of hot in one place. Like they're basically just rose petals. But warm.
Alrighty, who wants to go next?
I do.
All
Nice.
right, twins, let's do this.
Okay. So, I'm not going to tell you guys the name of the story. I am just going to just regale you with the tale. So,
Ooh.
okay. So, I was hanging out, and I got a letter from my friend Roderick. And so, Roderick is really sick, and he wants me to come over to his place and basically help, because he's really fragile. He has nondescript faint of heart syndrome, where like he's physically weak, but he has like really sharp senses. Like he keeps the house really dark because the lights hurt his eyes, and he can only listen to like stringed instruments because everything else is too loud for him.
I see.
Yeah,
That sounds
so.
a bit like he's regular sick, but also is being a little bit prissy about it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I can only classical is gonna not gonna hurt my, like, classical gets real loud sometimes. No, it has to be classical.
So
My tea
yes,
has to be at the perfect temperature, otherwise it burns my mouth.
exactly.
My oatmeal doesn't have cinnamon on top. You gotta fix it. I'm sick.
So I go to Roderick's place, and it's really weird because his house. So he's got his own house, and there's like this thin crack down the wall of the house, and it goes all the way from the roof all the way down, and the crack also like it goes into the lake because the house is situated right next to a lake, and it kind of just bisects the house, but it's just a little crack. But it's like they should probably get that fixed up, but Roderick's not gonna do that because he couldn't hold a hammer. And so I get there, and it turns out Roderick's sister Madeline is also living here, and that's fine, but she's also really sick.
Just a sicky ass family.
Arguably she's significantly worse though, because what happens is she's catatonic and she'll fall into these death-like trances.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Yeah, and then she'll wake up and she's fine again. So, yeah.
That sounds like something like an ER should handle, not my buddy down the way.
Yeah.
This is
My buddy brings us soup sometimes.
this was a long time ago. So, you
That's
know.
true.
And also like ERs are expensive. So,
Well, yeah, I could tell it was a long
So,
time
yeah,
ago. He called you by letter.
So yeah, she just goes into trances sometimes, and we let her hang out. And And also, these two are the last two in their family. Everyone else is dead, and it's just these two. And to be frank, neither of them really seem to have any suitors lined up, so...
I mean, look, you're that sickly.
real end of the family line right here. But that's fine. That's fine. So, I board up with Roderick and his sister Madeline for a little bit, and everything is fine. Roderick likes to do this thing where he'll paint still lives of the house. Like, kind of just paint the house. That's all he ever likes to paint. But it's weird, because he always makes the lake glow, like a bioluminescent glow.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
like, Roderick, why do you do that? And Roderick's like, that just feels right. It's like, all right.
Just want the water to be glowy, man.
Yeah.
This is how
enjoy it. It's my
This is how we
style.
find out. This is how we find out Roderick's colorblind.
And so one day, I'm like, Roderick, let's cheer you up. And so, Roderick has an improv jam sesh on his acoustic guitar.
Oh. All right.
And during his improvised song, he basically sings to me about how the house is bad. And then he like stops strumming and he looks at me and he says, "I think the house is alive."
Maybe it's time for oatmeal. Lay down in bed.
And also, I think it is connected to my sister and I. And it's like, okay, Roderick,
All right.
how about, I think that's enough of the guitar for today.
All right, buddy. Okay. Maybe put it down. Just.
So we stop playing instruments for the day.
Roderick. Oh, yeah.
So a couple days later, Madeline dies.
Oh
my god!
Bummer. That's not good.
And that's rough. And Roderick's really worried that, like, that weirdo Frankenstein freaks are gonna steal her corpse for medical studies. So he doesn't want to bury her yet. Yeah, because that's a thing. People will just dig up bodies to study them, and Roderick really doesn't want that to happen. So his plan is to... How convenient. The house has a tomb. It's the basement, and it's a tomb. Just like how all
nice.
houses have. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the
all normal houses have that. It's true.
Yeah. And so he's like, so we'll just entomb her in the family tomb for a couple of weeks, and then we'll bury her. Because by then, all the creepy weirdos will have been like, oh, we can't find her body, so we'll just give up. And it's like, okay, that's an idea.
Is that sure? Makes perfect sense.
I thought it was gonna be. I thought the reasoning was gonna be like she would have decomposed somewhat and become less useful for their research. But also, it's like, I don't know if a week in a cold basement is.
Roderick's a worrier.
Yeah,
So,
that's okay.
I help put her in the tomb because Roderick can't lift shit. This is also the point where I figured out they're twins. I don't know how I figured.
Didn't tell you before that.
Yeah, I don't know how I figured this out, by the way. I just do. Also, it doesn't matter.
Just a fact the author forgot to include earlier.
Maybe Roderick was sharing like the plans for like what he wanted the tombstone layout to look like, and you know how it has the like from age to age.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe.
That'd be smart. That makes
That's
sense.
my headcanon.
Them being twins really doesn't matter, but it was worth mentioning, I suppose.
Yeah, flavor.
Yep. So we're waiting around for the couple of weeks so we can bury her. And over the next week, Roderick and I become increasingly agitated. Like, he's being extra weird. Like, he keeps, like, just sitting around and staring blankly forward, and he won't answer me, and it's like, Roderick, play your guitar, and he's like, no. And so we're both just really getting on each other's nerves.
Stressful times.
It is. It's a rough week. It's a rough week for all of us involved. And then a storm begins. And,
oh no!
Yeah, and I'm hanging out in my room, and then Roderick just blasts in, and he's in a panic, and he swings open the window, drenching my bed in water because it's raining. And I'm like, Roderick, what the fuck? And he's like, look outside! And so I look outside, and the lake is glowing, like how all his paintings depict it as being.
What?
Yeah, and it's like...
Oh.
And it's like, I see why you're panicking now. This is bad. I understand.
I mean,
and
it
so-
might not be bad, but it's probably not good.
Probably not good. Yeah,
Probably
so
not.
Roderick's really, he's in a state. And I'm like, okay, let's calm down. Hey, I'm gonna read you a story. And he's like, okay.
Oh, not leave. I mean,
No.
I guess it's storming.
He doesn't like outside. Roderick
Okay.
doesn't, outside's bad. So we'll just stay inside and I'll read you a story. And so we hunker down.
Poor guy. He's so pitiful.
Can't lift anything. Can't do anything.
Poor man.
So I start reading him a story, and in the story there is this knight, like a knight in shining armor, and it's raining in his story too, and he busts down the door to a hermit's like house and finds that it's actually the opening to a castle. And as I read that part, as I detail the knight breaking down the wooden door, we hear a cracking, ripping sound somewhere in the house, not dissimilar to the story I just told.
Oh, hello, handsome knight. Hello.
Yeah. So Roderick looks weird. He looks like he's really focusing on something, and so I'm like, we'll just keep going with the story. We'll just ignore that.
He's really into it.
Yeah. And so next, this knight in shining armor, he finds a bunch of gold, but it's protected by a dragon. So he kills the dragon, and as he does, the dragon lets out a dying shriek. And it's at that point that a shriek can be heard emanating from within the house. A horrible wail.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And Roderick's like, we should just keep going. And I was like, okay.
Right, Roderick.
Yeah, it's probably nothing. Just a raccoon or whatever.
You're absolutely right.
It's just storm noises. This is
Yeah.
houses make funny sounds when it rains.
It's settling, Roderick says.
So I'm like, okay, and so I keep reading, and the knight, he's slain the dragon, and then a shield, a very ornate shield on the wall, falls to the floor, making a really ominous, like, clanging noise. And then, within the house, a metallic reverb sounds. And it's at this point that I'm like, what the fuck? Roderick. Roderick, what's...
The lake's glowing, and the book's coming alive.
Roderick, what's happening?
Let's see what happens next.
And so I'm like, Roderick, what the fuck? And Roderick's like, so I've been hearing these sounds for days, because he has really sensitive ears. He can hear, and he's like, they're being made by Madeline, who's still alive when we entombed her.
What?
Yep, Madeline is still alive.
What?
Why did
it's
you
at that
not-
point that I'm like, Roderick, why didn't you mention this earlier?
Roderick. What the fuck, bro?
And I'm like, oh, okay. And then Madeline bursts through the door, and she's covered in blood, having arduously escaped her tomb. And it's like, oh shit. And she attacks Roderick.
I mean, fair.
I would be pretty mad too.
I think I would also be upset. Oh, I know. My brother has super hearing. He'll hear me for sure. And then cut to him upstairs being like, that sounds like my sister.
So
Anyways,
everything's...
another painting.
So it's all kind of a lot, and Madeline attacks Roderick, who dies from fright.
Oh my
'Cause
god, Roderick!
Because
Oh,
he has
a
his
rabbit till the end.
he has his weak heart, and he just dies, and then she also dies because she was entombed for a week.
Yeah.
Enough strength
She's like,
to kill,
I have 1 minute left. I'm barely
taking you
any
out with
strength.
me.
With the last fiber of my life, I am going to end you. Rod.
So Roderick and Madeline are dead, and I'm like, oh, fuck this, and so I run. I'm just out. I'm like, nope, I leave.
Yeah.
And I look behind me, and I see that tiny crack in the house has
I was
widened.
wondering when it was gonna come back.
Yep, it has widened, and the house splits in two, and then the house of Usher falls into the lake.
I caught on the moment the house was brought up at all. I was like, oh, I know this story.
I didn't catch on at all. Because the only thing I knew from the House of Usher was Twins. You did a monologue for it
A
in
billion
high
years
school.
ago. Yeah.
But it was like only the closing sequence of him running from the house. So the only thing I knew from the fall of the House of Usher is the fall. Wow, that was a great story. That was like genuinely good.
Yeah, a lot of people say it's Edgar Allan Poe, of course, and a
Yeah.
lot of people say it's perhaps Poe's most succinct and well-written story.
Yeah, that
Because
was
everything comes
good.
back. Everything plays a role in the story, except for them being twins, but I guess they died at the same time, so I guess that's how it works out. Everyone always goes on and on about how they like The Raven, and yeah, it's a good poem, but it's like, come on, guys, wake up. Poe's got tons of great stories out here.
Man,
I think it's because
fascinating.
his wording is so like heavy. It's a little hard. You have to like really pay attention to what is actually happening, because
Yeah, he
otherwise
can
it's
be
like,
obtuse.
wait, the sister isn't dead.
Yeah, it's also, I think it's one of the more genuinely spooky Poe stories, because the thought of Madeline specifically, like, waking up and she's been buried alive, that's horrifying. That's too much.
Is his name actually Roderick, the character?
Yeah, I didn't change any of the names.
Why didn't he help his sister when he realized she was still alive?
Yeah, I don't know. He was probably scared.
Makes sense.
Probably scared and weak.
Poor stupid rabbit man.
Yeah.
When it started, because of like the glowy lake and stuff, I really, really thought it was gonna be Lovecraft.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, but then it got to like people in the walls, and it was like, oh, there is one man who
He
loves
loves things in
people
walls.
in the walls.
Yeah, it's, I think my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story. I remember I had borrowed from the library a book of, like, a couple different Poe stories, and this one was in it, and it was hilarious.
They had pictures. Like, someone did, like, it was like a picture book, but Edgar Allan Poe, and the pictures were hilarious. Like, they went so ham on making the visiting friend look miserable, and Roderick just an ass.
It was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I remember I tried reading the picture book, and I was like, this is just I'm not having it. So you read it, and then we were working, and we went to work the next day, and you recounted the story to me in a similarly hilarious fashion, and that moment is the reason why I thought of making this podcast.
Oh my god!
Really?
Yes, awesome!
Wow, I didn't know
It all
that.
comes back together. That's amazing.
I didn't know. I feel so honored
Wow.
now.
That's so special. What an important little story.
Yeah, wow. Usher's so cool.
That's great. Man, I feel bad about going last this time.
No, I'm sure it'll be great. I'm excited. Yours
Oh,
will
man.
probably be the most actually spooky one. That's what I'm predicting, at least. So
Yours was like an epic. That was great. Okay.
All right, Allison.
Okay. So, there is no point in me attempting to be coy about this one. This is not only a story that gives it away what story it is within the first sentence, but it is also a story you both know. But I really like it. So,
can you say the first sentence first, and then we'll see if we know what the story is?
the Red Death is a plague that has been around for a very long time.
Yeah, that kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
So for those of you who aren't in the know, this is The Mask of Red Death, by Edgar Allan Poe.
Hell yeah.
Woo!
In this house, we respect Edgar.
Oh, and Faust. Woo.
Heck yeah. So the Red Death has been around for a while, and it kind of sucks. So there are a few
Only
symptoms.
kinda.
Yeah, kinda. So there are a few symptoms. Pain, dizziness, and bleeding from every pore in your body, but especially your face, because there's lots of pores and lots of blood in your face. And then you die. So, yeah, pretty rough.
Just a little shitty.
Yeah. Not a lot of people have a really good time during this plague. But there's always exceptions, and Prince Prospero was one of those exceptions. The plague didn't bother them too much. So once about half of his citizens had died, which I'm going to say, it's waiting an awful long time, but, you do you, bro. So once about half the populace was dead, he was like, you know what? This is kind of a drag. So he invited 1,000 of his coolest friends to come and have this real big party with him and just hang out and be cool and chill in his castle while everyone else died.
What a good prince. Top tier.
What a Jake Paul of a man.
Yeah, he had a very it'll run its course, and in the meantime, let's get drunk. So they all go to his castle, and in a move of a brilliant foresight, they weld the gate shut, because in their minds they were like, don't want anyone to get too crunk and make some bad choices and let in the gross.
Yeah. Well, don't want any of those
gross dying
grossos.
pores.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta quarantine.
Yeah. So they cut off their only means of escape. This is only going to go well.
Yes.
No, only means of entrance. There's no reason to escape.
That's
Exactly.
That's true. Why would
Who's
you
gonna
want to
miss this party?
Nothing bad will happen. Nothing bad will happen.
Stories happen because nothing bad happens.
That's true. Especially Edgar Allan Poe stories. Ones that are titled The Mask of Red Death. So,
Yeah, I mean, the most he has to worry about is finding a cat in the wall.
yeah. Okay, so let's party, they said. And so they did for a really long time. They partied for 6 months. 6 months of just partying. So these people are just really having a good time. And around that time, around the 6-month mark, Prince Prospero decided he wanted to hold a masquerade ball. But first, before we get to the masquerade ball, we need to talk about the layout of where that ball is being held. So, this layout is pretty unconventional because Prince Prospero ain't no square. He doesn't have no straight lines or blank walls in his cool masquerade place. No. lots of twisty turns and bends and chandeliers and stained glass windows. And then every room, because there's 7 rooms, every
Nice.
room is going to be a different color.
One for every sin. Nice.
So the first room is blue, the second room is purple, the third room is green, the fourth is orange, the fifth is white. I almost lost track of numbers. And then violet. And then the last one is really cool. Yes.
Number
go for it.
6. Number 6 was violet.
Violet, yes.
Number 2
But
was
wasn't
purple.
number- Yeah.
You know,
Those are the
kind
same-
of different purple.
Prospero.
Like
What a
one's
black.
a blue purple and the other's a
like
more red
purple.
purple. Yeah, you know?
Give
Purple's
him a
good.
break. He didn't want a yellow room. Boring.
He also
Prospero
apparently
doesn't
didn't want-
follow your rainbow conventions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, apparently he also didn't want them in rainbow order, which is
is
also
also-
annoying too.
No, that would be a square thing.
This is also how we find out if Prospero is colorblind.
He's like, what do you mean? This room is completely different from room number 2.
Yeah. Okay, so the last room is the cool room, because it's a black room with blood red stained glass windows, perfect for having seances or children's birthday parties. That's actually in my notes. I wrote that
Sorry.
Your delivery.
Right.
Okay.
So we know where the cake is.
Sickest birthday room. Got it.
Yeah, next birthday room. Okay. So here's the important part. There's also a big cool clock, which I will now describe in excruciating, agonizing detail. In fact, I will describe this clock more than I have described the plague that this story is foundationally laid upon. The clock is big, tall, and black, made of ebony. It has 2 hands, one pointed at the hour, one pointed at the minute. Actually, I lied, there's 3 hands, one pointing at the seconds. Tick, tick, tock goes the clock. It has a pendulum that swings back and forth. Boy, it is rad. It is cool. Every hour on the hour, because that's what big cool clocks do, it makes a sound to indicate the time. And every single time these children stop and listen, because it's like kind of a scary sound. So like every hour the clock goes off and they all go quiet and like stop what they're doing. And then like finishes, and then they like and go back to normal, like trying to pretend that they weren't afraid of the scary clock sound. And it's like, you've been here for months.
I think you would have been used to it.
Why didn't someone
Get
just
over it.
like stop the pendulum at
Just
some?
just take out the fucking clock ticker noise. It's this big of a deal that literally the orchestra stops playing every hour.
It's also amazing that they've been partying nonstop and everything's still intact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This clock is so interesting. What's your favorite character in The Mask of Red Death, Timmy? Mine is Big Clock.
Is the clock in the birthday room?
Yeah, the clock's in the birthday room, because it's like, it's an ebony clock, and it like matches the color palette.
Yep. Nice for birthdays.
Yeah.
So then you
yeah.
know when you
Big
can get your
birthday clock.
shitty little kids and get out of my house.
Anyway, so the masquerade was neat.
Yeah.
Dancing. Cool
Where did they
music.
get the masks?
I think
Made them out of like the paper plates that they had left.
Nice.
over.
Yeah, it's like, we're spending 6 months in here. Might as well do a craft to keep ourselves entertained.
I think
Yeah,
everyone. everyone likes the idea of a masquerade more than actually doing a masquerade. Because, like, this mask is hot.
Get ready for it.
I would be delighted. Life goal of mine is to either host or go to a masquerade.
Heck yeah, I go with you, friend.
Hell yeah.
Get one of those masks on a stick, so you just have to kind of, like, hold it all night near your face.
That sounds exhausting. Like having a clutch purse.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I don't get it.
But anyway, so this masquerade is really cool.
Yeah, rad masquerade. So yeah, they're having a great time, getting interrupted by the clock, freezing every time, like those stupid fainting goats, trying to play it off like nothing happened. So, the clock strikes midnight, and suddenly, because since every time they're like getting quiet and listening to the clock, when the clock strikes midnight, they all notice a new figure standing in the room, and the dude's costume is like super offensive. It is very cancelable, very insensitive. And, you know, they're like, listen, we all left everyone out there to die. But even we have standards of what we're willing to poke fun at, sir.
What's his outfit? Why is it so offensive?
So he was wearing burial clothes. I assume a suit. And he wore a mask that looked like a corpse. And he was covered in fake blood. And everyone was not having it. They were real upset. And Prince
That's
Prospero,
rude.
Yeah. It's like there are lines.
Yeah.
Leaving people to die, making an offensive joke. That you're crossing the line.
Yeah.
So Prince Prospero was especially upset, and so he was like, "Seize him!" And no one did because they were like kind of afraid.
Yeah.
And also, it's
Gross.
like, right, like it's like a bunch of your rich friends. Like they're not like cool knights or anything. They're just a bunch of pompous assholes. So no one really wants to, you know, be the one to accost this this ne'er-do-well. So he's like, well, fine, I'll do it myself. And he gets a knife and he attempts to stab, and then he dies.
What?
Oh,
The
okay,
guy
so
dies?
No, Prospero is
So
like, I will
much.
stab, and he runs up to do his stab, and then he dies.
So, all right,
And I'm gonna
Prospero,
say-
maybe if the first instinct wasn't to kill the man, maybe just tell him to get out of the outfit.
I'm gonna say, there's a missed opportunity here, because very clearly, he just dies. Like, that is explicitly written. It's not, he didn't bleed. He does not bleed. He just dies. And it's like, but the story, but whatever.
Spontaneous human combustion, you know?
He just drops
Yeah,
dead.
you know,
It's fine.
Maybe he had faint of heart disease as well, like Roderick.
You know what? Fair. It was all bluster.
Yeah.
That was it. So at that point, seeing their best buddy and their host dead, now the crowd is like, you know, there's a lot of us and only just one of this dude, so charge! And they all rush this guy and they grab him and they're like, okay, you fuck. Time to unmask you. And you know that scene in the Scooby-Doo movie that you showed me? Where you know, where Fred is like, time to unmask this villain, this creep, and he pulls off the dude's head.
Yeah, because it's a
an
zombie.
actual real zombie instead of a man wearing a mask. So that happens. And everyone's like, oh.
Oops.
Uh-oh. And they all died. The end. Except for the clock, because the clock is too strong and cool to be defeated by Mr. Red Death, and also has no pores or blood. So really, the clock was the winner.
Best character, Clock. Clock was best character.
Clock for Smash.
Clock, TikTok's in.
So wait, was it like a sickly villager who like got his way in, or did
No,
one of
it
the?
was.
No,
So,
it was the plague.
It was literally Red Death himself.
Ah.
It was the Red Death, being like you cannot escape me.
Prospero,
Hiding,
which also
hiding isn't gonna help. I'm gonna get you.
what a name also for your main character, Prospero. Pretty on the
Prospero?
nose, yeah.
Yeah, very very direct.
I remember. Doesn't Prospero... I thought Prospero started in the blue room and then ran through all of them until he got to the black room, where... Because no one liked being in the black room. And that's where he died. And then, as Red Death walked back through all the rooms back to the front door, I thought everyone was already had the plague and was dying. Am I wrong?
That would be very
That sounds
very
more
cool.
and
cinematic. He did he was in the blue room, and he ran from the blue room to the black room. But no, they all rushed him and pulled off his Scooby-Doo mask.
Cool.
Yeah. Yours is very cool though. I really like the visual that you just painted.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It'd be
I
like
gotta
in
be honest, the way my brain works, when I was trying to read the part where he details so meticulously the layout of the architecture, I have never read and reread paragraphs as often as I read those. And maybe because it was like the tiny text on my phone, but it was just like, why is it so important to detail the way that the lighting works? Like, oh, there is not lighting in each individual room. Instead, there is a carefully placed candelabra within the hallway, which illuminates each room. And it's like, it's Mr. Poe.
It should have just been
very obtuse.
Should have just been a hallway. Like open a door, it's a square room. Go walk just to the other side, open door. It's another square room, but this one's green.
And Garland Poe just
Definitely
accidentally
trying to articulate-
shuffled. He just accidentally shuffled his plans for his house renovations into the middle of his poem script before submitting it.
Definitely trying to articulate a point which was very important to him, which was the fact that you can see through, like, the fact, even though there are 7 rooms, you can see into the different rooms. And I understand that, but, like...
Perhaps the idea was to try to convey it in a way that made it clear that it was supposed to represent, like, a human body without just saying it looks like a human body, but maybe it didn't work out well.
Is that what it's supposed to be?
I don't know.
I always wanted
you
them
could read
to-
it that way.
Okay.
I always wanted the different colors because, like, obviously the red, the black room was the death room. Blah.
Yeah.
I always wanted the others to have some sort of significance tied with them as well. Like, he's starting the blue room and he's sad, and it goes to the yellow room and he gets happy or whatever. I don't know.
There is
suppose
no yellow
if I
room.
were-
He is not a square.
There's just 2 purple rooms.
I suppose if I were to be directing this movie, I would have the first room be happiness, and then the next following rooms are the different stages of, like, grief, and then the last room's death. That's
Maybe.
what I would do.
Well,
when I was reading it, I was trying to, like, suss out any, like, does this mean anything? But I don't know, maybe I'm just obtuse, but I couldn't think of, like, any like symbolism that the colors would have. But
Maybe Edgar just got drunk, because if memory serves correctly, I'm pretty sure he was a pretty heavy drinker. So maybe Edgar just got drunk and thought about this really silly collection of rooms.
blue room, purple room, green room, violet, and someone's
another
like,
purple room.
Isn't that? And he's like, no, shut up.
you shut up.
Maybe the story started with the idea of the rooms, and then he put something in it. Like, okay, now that I have these funny rooms, what happens in here? A plague.
The moral of the story is wear a mask.
Yes.
Yeah.
And wash your hands.
Yep.
Wash those
That one's-
darn dirty paws. Get them
That
in the
one's-
sink. Get them
That
in the
one's
sink.
my favorite Edgar Allan Poe story. I like that one a lot.
I
really
love
like the Mask of Red
yeah.
Death. I know. I got stuck on like the parts that he spends a lot of time describing. But everyone loves like the atmosphere of the Mask of Red Death. It's good stuff.
Yeah. It's
I
like,
think
it's the kind of thing I would want a Guillermo del Toro, like, short film.
Oh,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because in my head also, Red Death always towers over everyone else. He always does in my head. And Guillermo loves having gigantic characters.
It's so interesting. Every time I reread The Mask of Red Death, I forget that the Red Death doesn't look like how I picture him. Because I always imagine, like you said, like someone very, very tall and like kind of veiled and almost Grim Reaper-esque. And then, but it's described as so much of like a zombie, you know?
I always picture him really kind of short, skinny, kind of frail, on a zombie-esque. So I guess I got it
it's
right.
straight up like looks like a corpse, and it's, you know, just not the
basically
intimidating presence I picture.
I basically just imagine Red Skull, like when he's hanging out in fucking Boromir or wherever that place is, where they have to get the one Galaxy Stone. What's it fucking called? Infinity.
The Soul Stone? Yeah, I know. I know the story of the fall of the House of Usher.
Everything you said was wrong.
I got Red Skull's name right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the story of the fall of the House of Usher. What's that? What's a Guardian of the Galaxy? Who's an Avenger?
I really wish you had called him like Red Elrond or something.
I should.
Just add one more on top of it.
Well, guys, thanks for having a great story time with me. This was a delight.
Fun.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Everyone here is gonna have cool Halloween videos out on the 31st, so you should check those out when they come out.
Hell yeah.
And subscribe to Twins and Allison. Watch all their amazing videos. Allison recently made several cooking videos that are fantastic.
They're hilarious. I'm in them. I
She's
filmed
my
them.
cinematographer.
Hell yeah. So, go watch those.
Right. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adios.